since you've been gone, gosh, a lot's happened, you know? You leave for a couple days and the whole world changes.
It certainly does. We have the long-anticipated Biden-Hur tapes that were released back on Friday. And coincidence or not, the auto emerged from Axios, whose reporter Alex Thompson, along with CNN's Jake Tapper, is releasing a new book this week detailing how Biden's inner circle allegedly concealed his cognitive decline from the public. Now, throughout Hur's interview back in October of 2023, President Biden then fumbled for words. He failed to recall both basic and important dates.
So during this time, we were living in Chambers Road, and there were documents related to the Penn Biden Center or the Biden or the cancer booster shot or your book. Where did you keep papers that related to those things that you were actively working on?
Well, I don't know. This is what, 2017, 18, that area?
Yes, sir.
Remember, in this time frame, my son is either been deployed or is dying. And so what was happening, though, what month did Bo die? May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he died?
Maybe 2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think it was.
Yeah.
That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Okay.
I can't handle the truth in this instance. It is very difficult to listen to any of that without becoming stark raving mad. And of course, the question here is, why are these tapes finally being published now? Of course, not only does Axios' Alex Thompson have a book to sell, but over the weekend, Biden's team also announced, on top of all of this, after the whole nation realizes for real, even the most normie con, that he was obviously senile for a long time. Now we learn that he's suffering from an aggressive form of prostate cancer.
And the mainstream media is going to do what they do. They're going to do the whole cover-up, but then now it's all unraveling because they want to be known as on the right side of history. Now, his mental struggles are confirmed in the Hur tapes and numerous book releases. And top oncologist, we have Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, who once worked for President Joe Biden, made some startling claims today on MSNBC's Morning Joe with Joe Scarborough.
This is not speculation. If you have prostate cancer that is spread to the bone, then he's most certainly, you were saying, had it when he was president of the United States.
Oh, yeah. He did not develop it in the last 100, 200 days. He had it while he was president. He probably had it at the start of his presidency in 2021. Yes, that I don't think there's any disagreement about that.
So there's no disagreement. Well, Biden himself might have spilled the beans on his cancer diagnosis all the way back in July of 2022.
And because it was a 4-lane highway that was accessible, my mother drove us, and rather than us be able to walk. And guess what? The first frost, you know what was happening? You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
So here's what's clear. A lot of you already knew this, but millions more people are learning it every day. It appears the country had been running without a president for the past 4 years. One person we wanted to bring in today with further insight into this is our friend and now Blaze News contributor, Oversight Project President Mike Howell. So, Mike, welcome. There's a lot to talk about today. But let's just start with who or what was the power behind the bureaucratic state making decisions for Biden. We'll get into how this happened, but do you have any insight into who these people were who were running things?
Yeah, I certainly have my suspicions. And one of the first people that Chairman Comer, when he announced they're actually going to subpoena some individuals to come in to testify about it all, is Neera Tanden. She was the staff secretary, basically the one who controlled all of the paper. Recall famously, she comes from Soros' world, and they wanted her to be the OMB director, but she was mean to Bernie Sanders on Twitter, so she didn't get that job. But she seems to be the paperwork czar. There are a couple other names that Comer has highlighted. I think there's going to be gradations of people. I don't think it's going to be one. I think it's basically a committee of certain influences and special interest. I think Obama world had a profound outsized impact on it. And when you look at some of his top surrogates, I think you'll see names like Susan Rice and Eric Holder. Obviously, the Biden family had a lot of play. I think Jill and Hunter were still affecting a lot of the decision making. And so there's a lot to learn, but we only learn it after people get prosecuted for these crimes.
So you and Oversight Project were the first ones to shed light on the autopen scandal. So take us through the latest in where that stands now.
So last summer, we basically realized, hey, all these documents that Biden's purporting to sign look a little goofy. And so we pulled them all and figured out, oh, they're using an autopen, or at least, two variations of an autopen for simply like copying and pasting the same signature. We put that out there. President Trump reacted to it a couple months ago and said the pardons are null and void. Since then, Ed Martin said DOJ is looking into it. He's now the pardon attorney, so he's looking into it. President Trump said once again that the pardons are null and void, just a couple days ago. So the question is, and the recommendations we gave, Congress needs to subpoena these people to build out the evidentiary record, and that can only be done with a compulsory process. Second to that, President Trump and his DOJ should criminally charge the people who received the pardons. Think of Jim Biden, who got one of the autopen pardons on the last day, Adam Schiff, Anthony Fauci. Those people should be charged, and those pardons should be tested. Now, we're going to keep putting out the investigative material that sparked all this and that everyone's acting on, but ultimately that's what needs to happen to really answer the question and impose accountability.
Well, I hope, given what's been, given these revelations, given this interview, and given all the press, that this is just accelerates the process, that people are actually held accountable. What's remarkable to me right now is that, and it's easy to get jaded. It's easy for myself to get jaded. Jill, all of us, God bless us here. We've been watching this in real time going, I can't believe we have a president who's not really there, right? But for a lot of people who don't pay as much attention or just, are living their lives, they assume, it's probably exaggerated political propaganda. At this point, I do feel like millions of Americans this week are increasingly going, what the hell happened? Do you think that's right? And what could that do to bring about justice?
I think that's right, but there's a danger in this specific time. We're basically seeing a controlled demolition of the Bidens, and we're seeing a public kayfabe confessional ritual, whatever you want to call it, where, with the audio tape coming out, with the White House rewarding Axios and Jake Tapper with that tape so they could sell their book, this is the time frame for people to come forward and be like, oh, he was bad, we should never do that again, and then move on. And so I worry that this could be the end of the conversation unless we pursue the lines of accountability that need to be had. Because people were seriously hurt by what the Biden White House did, whether it's people who went to jail, who had their financial lives ruined, whether it's those who have been killed by the hordes of illegals they invited over the border, whether it's the people who are the victims of the lawfare. To have accountability and to make those victims whole, we need to know who was actually running the White House and calling the shots and, committing the crimes. And that's where this goes. And that's why it's so dangerous and profoundly dumb that Axios was giving the tape for a controlled demolition late on a Friday night, where they deceptively edited the tapes to give the Biden camp a talking point of, hey, the tapes aren't that bad. Look, even Axios deceptively edited them. And all this controlled demolition was planned months ago. Tapper's book, who's getting rich off this, by the way, with the, frankly, the support of the White House, was scheduled as soon as we got the court to pick May 20th as the deadline for release of these tapes. So there's a lot of things happening at the same time, but all of it really relates to this controlled demolition period, and we can't let this be the end. And the Oversight Project won't. That's why we're saying what we're saying and doing what we're doing.
So let's drill into that real quick. I mean, controlled demolition. So what you're saying, check me if I'm wrong here. You're saying, look, Tapper's going to come out with this book admitting that they covered up Biden's senility or dementia, whatever you want to say, and that they planned to release this tape before it was forced to come out. and they deceptively edited it, and that's what everyone's talking about now.
That's absolutely right. You're living through a very coordinated comm strategy that ultimately benefits Biden. And the cancer diagnosis announcement on Sunday, come on, I was born at night, but I wasn't born last night. Like, the guy who's lied the most and his family in the history of American politics finally admits something was wrong. No, that you're living through a comm strategy executed to sell books and unfortunately assisted by the White House. I don't think with intent, but it has that end impact that they put the ball into Axios and Jake Tapper's hands, and they're the ones kind of controlling this kayfabe public confessional period where Democrats will be able to rebrand themselves and put this all behind them. And that's the whole purpose of this book, the rollout and the controlled demolition.
Yeah, it's PR 101, right? When you have these Google searches out there, when you search Joe Biden, they don't want this coming up, this topic that we're talking about. So they're saying, oh, you know what? We're just going to release that he has cancer. We've known it the whole time, but now we're all willing to say it. Let's go ahead and listen. We have Representative James Comer. He's talking about, they think that they know some of the staffers that are involved in the autopen scandal. Let's go ahead and watch.
But many of the executive orders that the courts are now using to Trump-proof many of the executive orders that President Trump is trying to implement to make government more efficient, many of these executive orders, as well as the pardons of Biden's entire family as a result of our investigation, these were all signed with the autopen. And clearly from that interview, which was many, many months prior to the heavy use of the autopen, Joe Biden wasn't capable of making decisions.
It's interesting to see the use of the autopen and the fact that it is making its way now to the representatives, that they're all talking about this, the fact that it's all coming out right now. How do you go and speak on just the fact that Trump is going back and talking about this right now, and also that it's going to be out here amongst all the representatives now?
Yeah, I think a lot of credit goes to you guys and others who we pushed through the legacy media narrative bubble and the control mechanisms. Autopen went absolutely viral because it showed simply how they executed a White House without a president. And then it got to President Trump, who saw it for what it was and put out the green light to not only his DOJ to charge them, but to Congress to investigate. And so we went around legacy institutions. And in terms of how the investigation continues, we, of course, are staying on it, providing the right people with the names of who to look at. And it's going to be multifold right now. Ed Martin, as pardon attorney, is going to be all over it. Congress obviously has a role to play. We've had a very strong relationship with Comer. We think him and his team are the best at what they do, even given the limitations of what Congress, both can and should do. And so we're just going to keep it alive. And it's really a very civically motivated investigation because people are furious. They want answers. And the autopen as a symbol of an actual device and instrument of how they executed the plan makes a lot of sense to a lot of people because it's simply what they did to get around the fact that they had a senile and incapacitated president. And so this isn't going anywhere. Joe Biden will forever be known as the autopen president.
I hope so, Mike. When you think about this, this is a difficult moment, like you said, because of the controlled demolition, because of the media psyop, where they want to let out some blood. They want to they want to get beyond this by taking some abstract responsibility and muddying the waters. So difficult situation. If you were advising the White House on how they should navigate this, I mean, what would your advice be?
Well, right now, a lot of damage has been done, unfortunately, because really accountability needs to be had on the media. They're the ones who propagated this on behalf of the White House. And so when you reward basically Jake Tapper, which is insane, I would rather have them given the audio to North Korea, let alone us, who they owed it to in litigation and broke working in good faith with them to get it out. But they just basically rewarded the institutional legacy media and the people who are really the enemies. And President Trump calls the fake news enemies of the American people. And I don't think he'd be happy to hear that his staff gave the enemies of the American people a tape to sell their book about their lies to the American people. It just doesn't make sense. But what do you do going from here? I think if I were the White House or President Trump, and who am I to advise him, it's that he cannot be more clear. He wants to see these people prosecuted. I mean, I get we're only 100 and so many days in, but how many times can the president call this out and not see his administration jump on it? And it's not going away. You look on social media, everyone is waiting for the accountability. And this is example number one.
It's not going away, Mike Howell. We know because you and Oversight Project are going to stay on it, and you're going to bring us all the updates right here on The Mandate. Thanks so much for your time today.
Thank you for having me.